Hello everyone, my name is Lindi and I am a spoken word poet from Vancouver. It is such a joy to be here today. Thank you so much to Sofar Sounds for having me. I haven't performed poetry in over a year, except for to my very patient and wonderful houseplants who have been my only audience this whole time. So I'm just really excited to share some new poems with you and some old poems and some poems from my poetry book, which if you are interested, you can find on my website. So I'm going to get started right away. This first poem is a new poem. I have been writing it for a number of years, but I finished it recently. And this is dedicated to anybody who's ever had to say goodbye to a beautiful relationship. It's called Lightning in a Bottle. If you want to catch lightning in a bottle, fly a kite in a thunderstorm. Reckless, I know. But if you want love, you must risk burning to the ground. On the third day of the music festival, we collide into one another, like sailors who miscalculated the stars, ended up on mysterious shores, discovered gold and called it dumb luck. In our case, we called it fate. Your laugh takes up so much space, like a giant fishnet, you sweep me away. For the next 3 days, dance is all we do, and under a cloudless sky, I happen to fall in love with you when you tell me how much you love rocks, how much you ache to climb mountains, how much you like being free. In retrospect, perhaps you meant this as a warning. If you fall in love with a wolf, prepare to spend your life competing with the moon. I should have known, but it was much too soon to know I would not be able to keep you. Years move by, but we live without time. We drink bitter IPAs, bathe in hot springs, and wear tie-dye. We are ridiculous and cliche in all the right ways. I write poems as you climb boulders, and at night as the campfire smolders, you show me a climber's choreography. From crimper to jug to undercling to send, verbatim you spit the beta. And I learned that the rhythm of a climb is the pace of a poem. Every toe hook, knee bar, heel hook is the cadence of a verse. And we are both just trying to traverse our way into center stage, trying to make something of these dreams that are chasing us. But soon, I grow envious of the mountains, how sturdy and still they stand, how you look at them, how they command you, how helpless I am, tugging at myself, wondering if I will ever be loved like that. The way a climber loves the thrill of barely hanging on, of risking it all. And in my loneliness, I write about you and the Moab desert and what it's like to watch someone you love run full speed like a hungry wolf towards the moon, and there is nothing you can do. And you say you know what that feels like too, that you don't know if you'll ever be as close to me as I am to my poetry. So we decide to let go gently, careful not to cause any extra cracking or bruising, because lovers like us are the kind to break irreparably. We let go gently, the way you must let go of all wild things, because it is the right thing to do, because it never belonged to you, because your hands were never the kind of hands that could cage something that so obviously needs to be free. You are still the hardest thing I have ever had to give up. But right now, you are somewhere on top of a mountain howling, and I am here with this poem that has got to count for something. No matter how hard we tried, and we did try, love, we tried. Lightning belongs not in a bottle, but to the sky. Thank you. This next poem is dedicated to my 2 nieces and to all of the daughters that were born this year. I was really lucky to witness a few of my friends become mothers to daughters, and even though it's been quite a lonely process in that we can't really have community like we might have wanted to, it's really magical just to watch those relationships be built. And so this is for all of the daughters that were born this past year. It's called How to Become a Woman in 5 Steps. 1. Find your voice. It has been lost for some time, somewhere, something convinced it to hide, and now, like a child who believes in monsters in the dark, it's afraid and ashamed. So approach it slowly, beckon it to come forward gently, and when it is ready, you will find it waiting somewhere between your head and your heart. Open your mouth and welcome any sound, no matter how quiet or how loud, to just breathe and come out. 2. Be patient with your body. We all grow a little differently, but you are seedling seeking sunshine. Stretch upward, open outward. You are full of corners and edges and beautiful, beautiful nuances. 3. Take risks. I know the world demands a lot from us, and sometimes it can all feel a little bit too much, but remember, without pressure, diamonds could not exist. Remember, you were born to take risks. You never would have learned to walk if you knew how often you'd bump into things and fall, so stand tall. Remember, when you were just a caterpillar preparing for the cocoon, never once did you second guess giving up your legs for wings. Never once did you think you would miss gravity. So take risks, be bold, and dream on. 4. Repeat these words daily. No matter how often my mind, my mirror, or the world tries to convince me I am not empty. I am full of power, full of beauty, full of grace, and I know that self-love is not easy, which is why you must practice it daily without failing. 5. Realize there is no step-by-step guide on how to become yourself fully. Some days, it will feel like the entire world is set against you. And on those days especially, remember, you are not alone. There is a world full of women standing shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand, singing your song and cheering you on. Thank you. So I would like to read some poems from my book. This is called Barefoot and Awestruck, and just some short ones here. I know that a lot of people have had dreams deferred and plans canceled over the last little while, so this is some inspiration for making new goals. Promise me, wild one, when they try to chain your feet, you will run until your breath returns to you, revives your pulse, and awakens your deserted dreams. I wrote this piece because I just feel that the world is becoming more and more divisive, and we're sort of losing connection with one another, and I'm really hopeful that over the next little while we will reprioritize our relationships and our communities. We are the masters of this house, and still we have not mastered how to speak softly to one another of our desires and our doubts, to hold each other when the lanterns burn out and the room goes dark, to honor the light in you and the light in me, and so too the light in all living things. And last one in my book that I'll read. Where was it? This tender and wild heart of yours, have you let it breathe lately? This clumsy and beautiful body of yours, have you let it dance lately? This bright and busy mind of yours, have you let it dream lately? Okay, this next poem was written about a student of mine, and it goes like this. His name is James. He is 16, and I know his darkness. He's the boy in the back of a high school classroom who hides behind screens. His social anxiety, like many of his peers, steers his life into loneliness. I know the voice that haunts him. It is hungry and it scratches, knows what to say to keep him in bed, convinces him no one will notice if he doesn't show up. I don't have much, but I give them what I can. pen, paper, and a chance to write a poem. Express your mess, I say. They tilt their heads to the sky as if an idea might drop from the ceiling, so instead I say it's okay, just write what you're feeling. Only then do their pens begin to stain the page. 2 hours later, I dare them to share. Somewhere in the back of a high school classroom, a boy who hides behind screens stirs. Inside him, a voice yearns to be heard. With trepidation, James raises his hand. I point. He stands, timid as a house who heard rumors of a hurricane. Trembling like a candle running out of wax, but he stands. Walks to the front of the room like it's the only brave thing he'll ever do. The class holds their breath, afraid that if they exhale, he might be blown away and never come back. But then he looks up, and his eyes ignite like fireflies, like stars, like phosphorescence, like lightning, like every beautiful thing that has ever devastated darkness. And when he begins to speak, the words escape his mouth like a river rushing to meet the ocean after years of meandering through deserts, like he is finally coming home. Fear unclenches its grip from his lungs. He breathes and lets go of his anxiety. He is reversing origami, learning to come undone slowly, opening himself up without hurrying, untucking his creases, unfurling his nuances. This is poetry in the making. His poem may be small, but it is his, and it comes from the most honest of places. When he finishes, the class applauds like waves crashing onto a shore, glad to have landed in that moment with him. A smile stretches so far across his face, I doubt he'll come back from it the same. And I know James is not cured. But this I know for sure. One true quality moment of connection transcends 1,000 text messages. And for a boy who hides behind screens, to allow himself to be seen, to expose his heart, to denounce the dark, and above it all, to call it art, is the reason I so desperately believe in the power of spoken word poetry. It may not save the world, but we are bleeding for belonging, and this is the closest thing I have come to a remedy for human suffering. This poem is dedicated to a friend of mine and to anybody who's ever gone traveling and fallen head over heels. It goes like this. I'm sipping a lime margarita on the beach in Sayulita, Mexico. It is 32 degrees and I am sweating and crying profusely. See, 4 months prior, I ended a 4-year relationship, and for reasons unbeknownst to me, I thought that sitting on a beach by myself for 3 weeks would somehow soothe the sharp pain inside the center of my body. It did not. Tequila is a devilish friend who will seduce you to the dance floor only to laugh as she kicks you down the staircase. So for the first 3 days, I am drunk and sad in paradise. Until the 4th day when he arrives, like a well-timed bite of jalapeno in an otherwise bland taco. He enters the scene. Now, I rarely lose the ability to articulate what I'm feeling, but I am rendered, for lack of a better cliche, speechless. He is beautiful. The kind of beautiful you leap for and trip over. The kind of beautiful that makes people stupid. I know because it did make me stupid, that is. It is the subtle nuance in his bone structure, the dimples in his cheeks, his bright blue eyes, the way he moves that makes me weak. It is futile for the ocean to resist the pull of the moon. If he had said right then, give in to me, kiss me, I would have given in too soon. And then I sort of come to, and I realize I have far surpassed the socially acceptable time limit you're allowed to look at someone before it becomes creepy. From look to stare to gaze, now bordering on hypnotic trance. I try to look away, but my eyes will not stay. They make their way back to him, and I can feel the butterflies stretch their shoulders inside my stomach. And then he looks at me. The way a surfer looks at the perfect wave, and when he doesn't look away, I know, and he knows, that we are already dangerously close to falling in love. See, starting a vacation romance means that the mating dance speeds up from a slow waltz to a salsa. So we waste no time on it. That night we go to the beach, dig our feet into the sand and our teeth into each other's life stories. His name is Pierre. He is from France, listens to electronic dance music, loves to surf, wants a tattoo but doesn't know if he can handle the pain, smiles when he says his mother's name. The first time we kiss, I checked to see if my lips were still there. Never had my skin burned like this. Pierre, your lips are ghost peppers. For the next 9 days, we are smitten. I speak broken French, he speaks broken English, and every now and then things get a little lost in translation. One day, while recounting the moment we met, he says, "Why do you say there's flying butter in your stomach when you like someone?" Le papillon, I explain. A metaphor, I explain. But then I think perhaps flying butter is a better way to describe the messy process of falling in love. On our last night together, Pierre and I are on the beach. He turns to me and says, "When I'm gone, will you miss me?" And before I can answer, he takes off all of his clothes, points to the ocean and says, "Let's go, mon chéri, let's go dipping skinny." I do not correct him. When you're in love, flaws become virtues, so we go dipping skinny in the Pacific Ocean, and as I enter the water, he says, "Look, the fireflies are swimming." I look down and bioluminescent plankton illuminates our bodies. The moon is shining and his eyes are so bright blue. Yes, Pierre, I will miss you. On the last day of my trip, I wake up to find Pierre not beside me. A note stuffed into my bikini says, "I will return, do not worry." Pierre returns 6 hours later with a look on his face I have not yet seen. Lovers, I have learned, will take a lifetime to read. He takes me to a room, takes off his shirt, and there it is. My face, tattooed onto his chest. But not just my face on the head of a pinup girl surfing a wave over top of his left nipple. Now, I know that the only rational thing here would have been to slap him in his face, call him crazy, and run away quickly, but I was not rational, I was in love, so instead I just kissed him. I wasn't interested in ruining the whole story simply because of the weird ending. Recently, I reached out to Pierre to ask if I could tell our story. The story of a girl who met a boy who made butterfly in her stomach, who went dipping skinny in the Pacific Ocean with swimming fireflies, and his response, "Tell the world, mon chéri." See, sometimes being a fool for love means getting your face tattooed on somebody else's body. Sometimes it means getting your heart broken. But I'd rather be a fool for love than a fool for anything else. All right. This poem was inspired by a podcast from Radiolab. They told a story about an artist and who did this incredible project called the Disintegration Loops. Highly recommend listening to the podcast and checking out his work. So this is called Disintegration. This is how it begins. It is Friday night. I am sitting on a couch with a glass of red wine in my left hand. A man I love says he heard a story he thinks I like. Presses play. A podcast begins. William Basinski, avant-garde artist in New York City, is the creator of this music titled The Disintegration Loops. A piece of music plays over and over again and again. If you pay attention, you might notice nothing new happens, just the same small song on repeat. We listen, it continues. Then slowly, it changes. Fragments disappearing. Each rotation ruins the tape. Each rotation powders the melody. The iron oxide holding the music dissolves. With each cycle, music falls. With each cycle, dust collects on the floor. Cracks become chasms. Chasms become silent deserts. And then the tape runs empty. This is how it ends. This is how it begins. It is Friday. I am sitting, a glass of red in my hand. Love says he heard a story. Presses play. Basinski, artist in New York City, creator of Disintegration, music plays again. Pay attention. You might notice nothing new happens, just the same small song on repeat. Listen, it continues. Slowly, it changes. Fragments disappearing. Each rotation ruins the tape, powders the melody. The iron oxide dissolves, music falls, dust collects on the floor, cracks become chasms, become silent deserts. This is how it ends. This is how it begins. It is I sitting. Love says a story begins in New York City. Disintegration music plays again. Pay attention. Nothing happens the same. Small song ruins the iron music. Dust collects, floor cracks, silent deserts. This is how it ends. This is how it begins. It is a love story in New York. Pay ruins the music. Dust cracks, silent deserts. This is how it ends. This is how it begins. Is love music, dust? This is how it ends. This is how it begins. Dust is how it ends. How it begins is how it ends. Thank you. So this has been really wonderful. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Sofar Sounds for having me. I really hope in the coming months and years we can get back to being together and there is something special about this, about gathering in spaces like this, that traces back to time immemorial, when storyteller and community used to gather in the dark around fire that reflected gold on our faces, and the stars eavesdropped on our conversations, and the moon smiled, and the crickets sang lullabies, and the wind tucked itself into the arms of trees, and everything outside was still, and nothing mattered, nothing mattered. Nothing really matters except this moment, right here. And when storyteller began to speak, words wove themselves like spiderwebs between us, creating irreversible bonds of empathy and understanding. Like tree roots, our bodies speak in a complex language so mysterious. I dare call it universal poetry. And it seems to me there is still some trace of something ancient, still some crumb of something sacred about gathering to witness each other in the flesh, and herein lies the power of community. So thank you for being here, and thank you for listening. And thank you to my houseplant.